It's your boy Matty G reminding you right now, go ahead and take that popcorn on at the microwave, put that extra butter on it, throw some M&Ms in there to treat yourself, and get ready because Scott Larson is bringing the hashtag truth right now.
Introducing Superjaw's Indie Supercard, the first pro wrestling trading card game with real wrestlers using their real moves, but not real weapons, because they're cards. Play with over 50 wrestlers such as George South, C.W. Anderson, the Jim Nasty Boys, the Dawson Brothers, Colby Carino, and many, many more. Go to becometheace.com/store to order the Ace Series 1 set, shipping in June 2020.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hashtag Truth. Tonight we have the one, the only, Mr. Lyle Superlaw Case. How you doing, sir?
Good, Scott. How are you doing?
I am doing great. We were talking a few minutes before the show, and I posted the poster that you were going to be on the show tonight, and man, I'm telling you, the reaction was blistering. You are a very popular fella.
Well, thank you. I just try to be nice to everybody best I can, treat everybody right, and teach everybody everything I can.
There you go, man. Well, I'm going to start you off with the first question that I ask everybody that ever comes on the show, because this is all about wrestling. You know that. How long have you been in the business?
I actively wrestled from 1998 to 2018, roughly. I've done a couple things here and there. Still involved with do some training and some backstage appearances and things like that. I'm still active in the community that I support the guys that I everything. But actively, it was for 20 years, from 98 to 2018, and then even obviously didn't get to wrestle any this year, but every once in a while we'll do little spots here and there. But pretty much so, just here and there nowadays. But working more with training and giving guys ideas and trying to be a mentor where I can.
Now I've got to ask, because I heard there was a progression in this. You call yourself Lyle Superlaw Case. I heard that when you first started wrestling, you were Lyle Law Case, and then it went to Superlaw. How'd that happen?
Well, at the time, I was law, and it's not based on what I did. I was a police officer for 13 years, but it was really based off of a Tekken character, the Tekken character Law. And I just needed somebody that and I was all about the video game. And I was like, well, I'll just take his name. And then as things progressed, I wore a mask, because I didn't really want people to know who I was, because I was doing like, as a public servant, and I didn't want to, that those two passed across. So I just kind of kept it like that. And then it got to a point where I showed up to a show, and the guy had the same mask as I had on. It was just a generic, luchador mask. And I said, well, I can't do that. So I come up masked, and I added some face paint, and I become, just Law, L-A-W. And then as time went on, I got beat up, and I had a couple of injuries and everything, and I had to reinvent myself again and reinvent my moveset, my approach things, and how I wrestle. And so I thought, well, let's do this. Everything was super. You always had Super Dragon. You had all these super things. I said, well, I'll just be Superlaw. So I retired as a Law, and the same night I came back as Superlaw, and continued that journey. And then as kayfabe broke, and everybody knows who everybody is. So I just kind of dropped the whole gimmick and let it be, as it is, my performing gimmick as Superlaw with a mask character, and added the addition of Miss Order, the valet, went to training and everything. And so it was a nice little run as far as that goes with the gimmick. I'm looking at the next progression. I'll go ahead and make an announcement here so that I can hold myself to it, and tell me what you think. Mr. Law, manager of the stars.
What? Ooh! So now the next step is becoming a manager. I like that. I do.
Yeah. So keeping the mask and everything, and just kind of see where it goes. I'm going to piddle with it and see if it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it'll be friggin' great. But I still want to contribute, anywhere that I can. So
That is totally awesome. Now, I heard through the grapevine that you are a huge luchador fan. Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah. So I've always taken my influences from other places other than the United States to for the most part, and mass characters have always been something that was just amazed me, and so I started studying with AAA and CMLL, and finding these guys that had wrestled for 20, 30 years, hard. I mean, blood and stuff. I think Jerry Clower said they put glass in
Luchador
their
is no
hand.
joke, man. Luchadors get after it.
Yeah, so I started studying their ways and learning, some of their techniques. And this was, we're talking about like 99, 2000, everything. And then at the same time, you had guys like the SATs doing their thing. You had um, 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 Chris Hamrick, being, the local,
An
amazing high
EC
flyer that
dub
can do things like
original.
that and study. And so now you see its influence in every match. It used to be just a rare thing, but now it's a heavily influenced today's wrestling.
Oh yes, without a doubt. The high flying style of the luchadors is well apparent in all wrestling now.
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I lost you there for a second. You got all quiet, and I'm going to get to some of these comments real quick before they build up. Whether Heather said "woohoo," she said she wants your shirt.
Oh yeah, right, Martin. Right. It's funny because tonight I want to talk about. I wore the villain shirt on purpose because I want to talk about some of the training techniques. I want to start talking to guys and a different way of thinking and how they approach things. But go ahead with your questions. We'll get to that in a minute.
All right. Ringsiders said hello and good evening from California. And as you can see on their picture, they are all about the masks and luchadors. So they're actually they're fans who have a gimmick. They actually call themselves Ringsiders because, of course, they sit ringside and the whole family wears masks. So I thought you'd love that.
Oh, I do. I love that. Yeah. That's cool.
Marcus Eric said luchadors are smart. They don't bump, they roll.
That's right. That's right. Roll. With the luchadors, I've got to run with a couple people. We got to wrestle. Me and James Drake got to wrestle Super Parker and Laredo Kid, and I know he's gone on to wrestle a whole bunch more famous people than that. But that was a real life changer for me and an eye opener to see how they call a match in the back and how language barriers came into play and how it really did. And then at the end of the day, we still spoke the same universal language of doing a dance in the ring, giving a good performance, a solid performance. And it was of the show that it was on, it was match of the night. And I'll never forget that. It was a reward for me.
Right, without a doubt. Ringsider says any fan of the mask is a 10 in our book. And speaking of book, it would look better with an autograph. Oh gosh, him and his autographs. I love it. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. I was told so much information, not quite information, but I was told you have a beautiful, beautiful house. I've got to ask you about your house, your cabin. Tell us a little bit about your cabin. How'd you come about getting a cabin? Oh, you're glitching on me. Wait a second.
Well, I live on a farm. We're glitching out.
Yeah, we're glitching right now. Let's see if we can get it to catch up here in a second. I don't know what happened. You're not moving at all on the screen. Now. Okay, I can hear you fine, but you're just not moving on the screen. So go ahead and talk about it.
Okay. At any rate, built my own cabin with the help of my family and everything. We pulled logs out of the woods, horses. We have our own sawmill and put it all together, and I made it the way I wanted to make it. So, yeah, it's I like it.
I heard
it's a Hills.
I heard some stories, but this was a question that I was told to ask you, and I'm pretty sure after I ask it, you're gonna know who told me to ask it. I'm not gonna mention names on air, but if you could sum up a party at your cabin with just one word, what would that word be?
Oh, back in the day, see, we were central. We were right around Asheville, so a lot of people would come up here, and we would throw these epic parties at the cabin. And oof, there's so many. I don't know, man. Up here, those bases, all kinds of things. It would probably be the wow.
I was also told, and again, I'm getting my information secondhand. I've never been to your log cabin, but I was also told that there's a door in your house that is eerily similar to the door straight out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Somebody said that
the side door is yeah.
I just had to bring those up because I just thought that was totally unique. That is just totally awesome. But we're gonna get back to wrestling now because yeah, you're glitching really bad. I wish we could get this under control because this is so much fun, man. I'm having a blast. Oh my gosh. I've got so many questions on this piece of paper to ask you. One of the things I want to ask you, if we can get it in, is, and this is outside of wrestling again, but it's something that interests me. Somebody told me that you like to do LARPing.
Yeah. So we do. I have our side business. My girlfriend and I, Miss Order, side business, or our actual business is we do creative cuisine for outdoor gatherings. So we do in the field cooking, and we do LARP events. We do which is the Society for Creative Anachronism. That is knights in armor and everything, and it's a recreation of medieval stuff. So we do everything from medieval style reenactment to full fantasy, reenactments with elves and orcs and dwarves, and then
where do I sign up? I look just like an ogre. Look at my teeth. I got the teeth and everything, man.
Got it. It's a lot.
Paint me green. Give me a piece of wood, and I'll go chasing somebody. I'm all good, man.
Yeah, we do.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And if you don't understand what LARPing is, let me explain. You role play, like, people play Dungeons and Dragons. This isn't a board game. You actually go out, you dress up, and you actually do what they talk about in Dungeons and Dragons. You actually go out and sword fight. You actually go out and slay a dragon and things like that. And it's larger than life. I've never I've seen it on TV, but I've never seen it in real life. And it was just awesome to hear that you actually do it.
Oh yeah. We do a lot of it.
Now you mentioned your business with your girlfriend, the wooden ladle. Is that correct? Is that what it's called?
That is correct. Yes.
So explain to people what the wooden ladle is again. You mentioned it briefly, but explain the whole thing.
So they'll have weekend events where anywhere from like 100, 500, 1,000 people show up at these places in the woods, and they'll camp out for the weekend, and they'll have different things going on throughout the night. Sometimes it's there's usually a lot of media involved, but the main reason that they're there is for camaraderie and to practice on their fighting skills. And when I mean like full contact fighting, the main thing is, getting together, fellowship, and then there's something where they have like something common with each other, but it's all about that fighting, and it's a good group, the local group in Aiken, South Carolina, or an event center. They're all over the United States, and we've literally gone from Pennsylvania to Florida, all to Alabama. We've been in different states, doing this. So it's a real neat thing, and the camaraderie of the people there is real similar to wrestling. So it's really neat.
That's cool. So it's a family-like environment.
Yeah, with meat and Vikings. Yeah.
As much as you can with Vikings, right? I love it. So let's bring it back to wrestling for a minute, because I know you got a lot of things that you want to get out personally on the show, but I want to get back to your days of wrestling. Explain to us where you started actually wrestling. What was the big company where you actually got your start?
Right, so I started at the lowest of the low, at the bottom, and worked locally for we've in podunk little arenas and whatever building that we could get in. So I started here in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Spread out just a little bit. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I've done all this stuff, because I haven't. I wrestled locally in the mid-Atlantic scene. From Virginia, Tennessee, down to Georgia, and that's about it. But what I did, I hang out with a lot of really cool people. I got to meet people, make a lot of memories, and I hope to have an impact on it. But you're saying bragging about making it, because the guys that I was working with, as I was around, the guys that were getting into it, those guys are making it now, and that's what I'm glad to see. And they're actually getting paid, instead of a hot dog and a handshake, and they're making differences. Yeah, their social media presence is they're putting out positive stuff all the time. Very rarely do you see negative. It's usually like one person mouths off and they'll shut it down, So, but
right.
Anyway, I expanded out from there. I think in total I ended up holding like 13 different belts. In probably 7 or 8 different companies, everything from tag team champions with people to, their heavyweight title. There's 2 companies I held every band, Southern Wrestling Association, the one out of Forest City and Chesney, the Rhymers, and with High Velocity Wrestling. I believe I held every one of their belts, won a bunch of the cool trophies. Before hardcore wrestling was like a big, had taken off in the second resurgence. The first resurgence, I had 2 back-to-back deathmatch tournaments that I'd won. So used to do the bloody stuff.
Speaking of Mr. Winchester, he said for you, he has a question. He said, for you, who are some of the most intriguing workers out there today?
Intriguing? Zack Sabre Jr. always. I'm a huge fan of Zack Sabre Jr. And anytime that I can, if you'll follow Dick Togo, do you remember Dick Togo?
Yes.
Yeah. So like, if you'll follow guys like him that are I really like to see his stuff, because he'll travel around the world, and even though his time as to be in the spotlight, so to speak, is come and gone, and he doesn't do it as much nowadays, but it's really fun to watch him work with younger guys and help them climb the ladder in this business, so to speak. So I like watching guys that make me think. I also love any of the luchadors, especially any of the comedy stuff. I'm a sucker for that. For Orange Cassidy. Oh my God, and it's not getting old. Oh, I love it. The more he does it, the more I love it.
Orange Cassidy, yeah. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people just look and just like, what is he doing? But it is comic. It's very entertaining if you understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, and he's by far not the first person to do that. Not by a long shot is he the first person to do, that kind of gimmick. So it goes back to that it's all been done concept in wrestling. So you can come up with the most amazing move, and I promise you can sit down and research. And there's some guy in France did it in 1967. The same move that you think you just come up with. So
I'm gonna ask you about a couple of actual teams that you were involved in wrestling, and I want to get your take on them. One is one that I really love. I didn't know that you were a part of this group until later on. I've seen some of their wrestling matches later on after you left the group, but when I was told you were part of the group, I popped, and that is East Coast Avengers. Tell me about that.
The East Coast Avengers are the best thing that ever happened to Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, baby. So you got Bryce and Neil, and then every once in a while you would have Ethan or Yoshi and Law. As far as that, so every once in a while we would do something together. To date, I have heard that the greatest wrestling match that ever happened in the entire Mid-Atlantic happened at the Blue Ridge Mall in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I have no recollection of it because I landed on my head, but I'm told that between all of us, it's the greatest match that ever happened.
That is awesome. I love to hear stories like that. That is so fun. Oh, by the way, I have to put this up here. Steven Spangler said Law is the best.
No, Shay McGrady is the best.
That's right. Waffle House approved, baby. And another team that you were a part of, and if I get this name wrong, you can correct it. The source that gave it to me wasn't sure if it was totally correct or not, but Violence Party of 4.
Yeah. So that was a short-lived thing we did in High Velocity Wrestling. It was me, James Drake, Zach Zulo, and Randy. Oh, Chad, what's his name?
Randy something, brother.
Talking about Randy Wayne.
There you go.
Yeah, we did. It was a lot of because those were like those days at High Velocity Wrestling during that time period. Man, so many things were formed. You had guys that were like the top of their game, just getting started, but everybody was top notch that was in there. It was a good locker room. It was a fun environment, and I can't say enough about the guys that made that happen, and continue to this day. Some of them are retired. Some of them just disappeared off the face of the earth. But some amazing stuff happened in that company. But when we were doing that, it was a lot of fun. There's right around that same time there was a lightweight match or a cruiserweight match that we'd booked, a ladder match that Zach Zulo was in, and he was the biggest guy in there, because
I was about to say Zach Zulo is nowhere near a flyweight. I mean, I'm not to talk bad about him because I love him to death, but when you started saying flyweight and Zach Zulo in the same sentence, I'm like, what? What is he talking about? Go ahead.
So the end of it is Zach on the ladder, and all the cruiserweights are jumping off at him, and he's just swatting them down like King Kong, just bah, bah. They would jump off every corner, and he's just steadily swatting them down. And there's a video of that somewhere out there, but it is exactly as I told you. It looks like King Kong swatting down airplanes out of the sky as he's hanging onto the Empire State Building.
Oh my gosh, I've got to go and find video of that. I really do. Billy said Law was the first indie wrestler I ever marked out for. Well, there you go.
Billy broke my nose in the ring. I love him.
Okay. Oh my God. Shay said Superlaw taught us all a ton. And Brian Cummings says he still pops for you.
I love that guy. Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask a couple more questions, and then we're gonna get to all the stuff that you want to get out. I'm gonna ask just a few more questions, and then we're gonna let you take over and get all the information out that you wanted to get out. One of the things I want to talk to you about is SWA, David Reimer.
Yeah.
About your time there at SWA. Just talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so my experience with SWA started before SWA was even a thing. I was wrestling. I believe it was big time wrestling. Not the same big time that existed, but a different one. And they had brought up a guy from Spartanburg for me to wrestle, and it was David Reimer. And it ended up in the middle of the match, I pantsed him by accident. I pulled him on like sweatpants. I ended up pulling his pants down, and so by accident on like a roll up.
Right.
And we were friends after that. We laughed about it forever. Then the SWA got started, and they rolled, and I stayed with them as hard and as long as I could. David's death took a lot out of me. It took a lot out of a lot of people around here, and a lot of day goes by that I don't think about him. There's a picture of him. I'm looking at a picture of him right now, so there's day doesn't go by, but he paved the way for a lot of guys around here. I wish my friend had got more help at the end of the day. I wish I could have done something more for him and been there. And, and I was there answering phone calls at 4:00 in the morning, and, just trying to be with him and comfort him whenever things would go wrong. And he had a whole string of bad luck. And I'll never forget what he did for me. And I'll never forget what he did for other people. As long as I live, say what you want about David Reimer. He is my friend. Him till the day I die.
I mean, I've heard stories. I'm not going to lie. I've heard stories about a lot of demons that he had, but the one thing that was always constant with everybody that's ever talked about David Reimer was he had a great mind for wrestling. He could spot a wrestler from a mile away, talent from a mile away that people didn't see in some people. And that's what I like to hear is, he believed in a lot of people that other people wouldn't have believed in, and they went on to do bigger and better things, even though the critics were out there saying, hey, these guys can't wrestle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now I have a totally different view than David had, but I always saw his way. I would come up with these crazy ideas. I'm like, Dave, let's do this. He'd be like, no, we're not doing that. Come on, let's do it. No. And his way always ended up best. But I was always there pushing the envelope with him, just trying to go.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that because you bring fandom, you bring the fandom of wrestling into it, and you just like if you let a fan run a show, you're going to see all kinds of big flippity floppity jumping off the top of the buildings. I mean, there's no telling what you'd see at an actual show if you let a fan run it. Because if you let me run it, there's going to be some spots that people are going to look at me and go, "What? You want me to do what?" But yeah, it's
for it.
Yeah, right. Without a doubt. All right, I got one more question for you because this really intrigued me when I found out about this, and I've got to ask you again. This is going outside of wrestling, but when this name was given to me, I had to ask. Please tell me about Straight Edge Monkey.
The Straight Edge Monkey?
The Straight Edge Monkey. He takes off. He's going to get him. All right. There he is, the Straight Edge Monkey.
The tiny X is right here.
Okay.
He can just hang out with.
There you go. I love it. Yes. Without a doubt. I love it. So I was told during some of your epic parties that you guys would put a drink in front of Straight Edge Monkey and he would go through the whole party without touching that drink.
He won't touch it. Oh no, bro. He won't touch it. He'll steal your lighter. He won't touch it. He is absolutely 100% straight edge.
That is great.
He don't don't smoke cigarettes. He don't smoke anything. He don't take no pills. He's straight edge, man. I don't know why people don't understand it.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me ask you this. Looking back on your career now, what would today's Lyle Superlaw case tell the Lyle Superlaw case that started in wrestling years ago? What would the Superlaw of today tell that guy who started in wrestling with what you know now?
To believe in myself a little bit more. I think I sold myself short on a lot of things. I wish I'd have believed in myself a little bit more. And I took anytime anything negative, happened, I took it to heart instead of like following my dream, and pushing it just a little bit further, making that extra phone call, going to that extra show. That would be the only thing. Other than that, I'm happy. I'm very happy with what I've accomplished and been able to be a part of. It's a great thing. It's a small subculture that not a lot of people get to experience. So at the end of the day, I'm happy. And the only advice I'd have had is, maybe you should have pushed yourself a little bit harder, but at the same time, I'm dealing with a broken back, a blowed out knee, a couple feet of stitches, things like that too. And I'm not getting any younger.
Right, without a doubt. Now, and again, I promise, last question, then I'm going to let you get to your stuff. What would you tell somebody right now today, if there's a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid out there who's watching Superlaw right now and wants to get into the wrestling business, what is the first piece of advice you would give that kid?
I'm going to get to that. I got it.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There you go. See? Set you up. There you go. Follow your bliss. I love it.
That's what I would do it.
Do it.
100% do it. Go after it. Watch all the videotapes you can. I say videotapes. Watch all the YouTube you can. Watch everything, and don't just limit yourself to like local or to United States wrestling. Please watch all forms of wrestling. Watch action movies. Watch how they fight. The whole 9 yards, which kind of gets into like what I want to talk about.
Right. I mean, so you popped when Vince McMahon. So I'm assuming you're one of the guys that popped when Vince McMahon told everybody that wrestling is sports entertainment.
I don't know about all that, man. I was kind of digging the secret, I was kind of digging it. I'm all about that secret teaching. I was kind of all for that. I got to wrestle at one place where, like for a year, nobody knew who, saw my face, and so I got in on the tail end of that, on a local level, on a mid-Atlantic level, but not, I was kind of a fan of the secret thing, but I get it. And, now we're looking at performers, like whenever I see, Iron Man in the Avengers movie, I know that's not really Iron Man, there's not really an Iron Man, the same, so that's the kind of concept we're working with now is that we're entertaining, we're performing, but I'm not going to lie. I was a fan of the kayfabe. So.
Right. So would you venture to say you're more, I know you like all the new stuff and the high flying stuff also, but who was that person that got you to look at wrestling and you looked and went, hey man, I've got to be a wrestler? Was it somebody you watched on TV back in the day? Did somebody take you to wrestling? What got you started in the wrestling business?
The boogie woogie man, Jimmy Valiant. There's never been a more a brighter character ever. That's who, because I look at that and I'm like, that guy just might whip my ass, and then he's going to laugh about it, and it's like, and he was just so out there. He was just such an outrageous character for the times. I was just, was always floored by that. I'm a sucker for a gimmick. I'm a sucker for a character. You can. Me
too. I'm high on somebody. I am so high on somebody who takes the time to put forth an effort to make a standout character. You know what I'm saying? you could tell when people put work into it.
There's a difference. You can go watch somebody who is an excellent, aerialist, who can do shooting star presses and all kinds of moves all night long, but if they don't have a character, or if they don't have, a way they carry themselves, then it loses interest to me real quick. It's got to be, that's what it is. We're there to see a performance. I want to see somebody performing. It's not just these physical acts. There's so much more than just this physical act.
Right. So what do you think about people who can't do a promo in professional wrestling? Do you think promos are a big part of professional wrestling?
I do. I do, and I think that everybody has their own place. That like sometimes it's good for a manager to talk. I mean, look at Brock Lesnar. He's not the best guy on the mic. He knows what he's doing, obviously, or he wouldn't be there.
Right.
But I like to hear his manager talk for him times. I can't remember. There was a promo at the PWX 16 that Boss was TJ Boss. They were interviewing everybody before the PWX 16 tournament, and everybody was cutting short promos. And TJ Boss's promo looked like this. Ready? And he just walked off, and he said more. He said more by not saying anything at all, And so even on a local level, now he can cut a promo. Don't get me wrong, but he was able to say more in that promo that by saying nothing. So I think it's an important thing. Do I think it's the be all end all? Not quite, but it is very important. You need to be able to, have that's the only way that you're going to be able to get your character out is through that. And it was harder then, but with social media and video and the technology, anybody can make a video. So why not make a video?
Hey, if I can make a wrestling podcast show like this, anybody can do this. Just saying. Just saying.
Right.
But so I for me, respect in the wrestling business is a huge thing. What do you think about some of these kids nowadays that are going into the ring without wiping their feet?
Man, where you get these tough questions from, man? So you know what? It's a respect thing. I get it, but guess what? Say the guy walks up there and he doesn't wipe his feet off before he goes to the ring. So what affects his character? Then what? So I'm all about the respect thing. It used to be, you had to shake everybody's hand in the locker room, and that's not necessarily the thing now.
Right.
There was the secret handshake and all that. I'm a fan of wiping the feet off. I encourage people to wipe their feet off. It shows a sign of respect. It's like the sumo wrestlers throwing salt, purifying, their area before they go in. It's the same concept to show that you're in a temple, so to speak, and you're there to put on to perform a ceremony, so to speak. So to me and a lot of other people, that's exactly what it is. You're there to perform in your temple, to perform a ceremony in your temple, if you will. And it's a place to be respectful. Plus, you don't want dirt and stuff in the ring. I get it, but hear me out. What if you had a bad guy that he just refused? You know what I mean? Just absolutely refused to wipe his feet off on going into the ring.
He makes it part of his gimmick. I mean, I can understand that part. I really could. But I'm talking about, the kids that and I don't know too many, but I do know a few that just don't do it. They just don't do it. You know what I'm saying? If it's part of your gimmick, I can understand it.
Fuck them. That's what I have to say.
There's nothing else I could put behind that. I can't follow that up with anything. There you go. All right, sir. Well, I want to get to name drop at the end of the show, and we're at the 40-minute mark right now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. You said you have some things you want to put out during my show to everybody, so I'm going to give you the floor, sir.
All right. So what I've done is I brought a couple books with me here today because aspiring wrestlers, a couple books. Can you tell? At any rate, with aspiring, they talk about training, and training is always, learning the move set, learning how your feet work, learning the technical aspects of it, learning how to cut a promo. And with the basis of that one day you're going to get into the ring, and for 8 to 12 minutes you're going to be told to tell a story, and that's going to be the thing. Like every wrestling match should tell a story, and people are going to tell you that from the minute you start training, but nobody ever really tells you where that story came from. And so what I wanted to do was just share a couple things that I've picked up, and some training techniques that I've done. Palmetto Championship Academy with Ethan Case, and I've put together a lot more since I first went down there. But I want to run through like just a couple books to pass along. The first one is I talked earlier about history, so I'll let everybody see that. And it is called The Comic Book Story of Professional Wrestling. My son Riley heard this on a wrestling podcast, I think Colt Cabana's podcast, but I'm not sure. And he ordered this. I suggest everybody that's into wrestling get this book. Order it. I guess you can order on Amazon, but try to find it because I think wrestling history is important. But in order to study wrestling history nowadays, you have to, that's a lot of research. There's a lot of stuff that's happened, If you talk about wrestling history, somebody might tell you the NWO was wrestling. No, there was more. Somebody might say the Four Horsemen. No, there was more before that. Oh my gosh,
right.
And it just keeps going back. So, but what about Japan? What about Mexico? What about Canada?
Right.
Well, I'll just share. Like you can see that there's different stories that are in here, like Bruiser Brody stories in here. I'll roll into so you can see like Ric Flair doing his thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So that book tells you little individual snippets of history in real small comic, easy to digest comic book form. And I take it everywhere with me. There's a picture of Teddy Hart in there with a cat, and anybody that knows this, oh my God, that's so funny. But there's all kinds of stuff in there.
Now there's one thing that I tell people that, try to test my knowledge of wrestling, and I get tested all the time because I'm a podcaster. And I tell them that, in a lot of books, it might even be in that one, that wrestling actually, there's some early wrestling that goes back to the circus. Some wrestling actually started at circuses. And people look at me like I've got something growing out of my forehead. They look at me like I've got something growing out of my forehead, and I tell them it started at a circus, and they're like, "No, it didn't. Quit disrespecting the business." No, I'm telling the truth, guy. Your business started at a circus, but it is good. It is good to know all that.
That's called carny talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason they call it carny, right? Carny talk, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, the second thing is where I'm gonna get philosophical on everybody for just a minute, okay? So just
go right ahead. I love it,
and I'll try to roll. All right. So, I do a lot of studying of a whole lot of different topics, ranging from the occult, the parapsychology, to history, mythology, the history of wrestling, all these things. And when I was a wilderness guide, I was introduced to to an author named Joseph Campbell. Well, Joseph Campbell wrote a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Let me see if I can get this in here.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Joseph Campbell, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And real quickly, because it would take us, people have degrees in this. So I'm giving you a very, very brief explanation of what it is. But basically, with Joseph Campbell's teachings and a famous psychologist named Carl Jung, right? They come up with these different ideas that there are these things that exist in our brain. So like as an infant knows how to breastfeed, for example, like how does an infant know that what a mother figure is? So they have the archetype figure that exists in all of our brains. You know, it's an instinctual thing. It's an ancestral thing. We know about it. Well, there's also things that have happened in documented history and mythology. There's stories in Greek mythology that line right up with stories from the Bible, with stories from Native American history, from Asian history, from everything, from all types of history. And Joseph Campbell noticed these similarities, and he called it, and he developed a pattern as to how that goes out, and he called it the hero's journey. And the hero's journey became the preferred method for delivering stories in Hollywood as of late. So if you take Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, even that story, it's always going to be the same thing, and it's going to follow the same storyline. So when we talk about telling a story in the ring, well, what does that look like? What's a, how do you tell a story? Well, use the hero's model for one thing. And the hero's model, I'm going to lay it out for you, works like this. Usually there's a call to an adventure is the first thing that happens. And that's where, say in wrestling, you get a chance to fight, for a belt. That's your call to an adventure. Or you're challenged to a feud, like, meet me in the ring, and it's a real beef between two guys. Meet me in the ring. And usually there's somebody there that either tells you don't do that or do that. In many cases, it's like the answer, or like Mean Gene Okerlund was always stuck in the middle, whenever somebody started a feud. So a lot of times it's that guy. Sometimes it's a tag team partner. Sometimes it's somebody that's a little older and wiser, but there's usually, or maybe it's a significant other, but there's usually somebody there that encourages them or gives them a bit of advice and tells them, you got to do this, right? And so
there's an instigator.
Is like
there's an instigator there.
Yeah, so we'll do from wrestling all the way to Star Wars, okay? So for Luke Skywalker, he met somebody who offered him encouragement. Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yep.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi is wrestling manager, is what I'm telling you, okay? But
and then he sent him off to Yoda, and then he sent him off to Yoda to be trained, just like a wrestler. Hello.
Right. So it's telling this story. So then you have a departure. We're going to make our walk to the ring and face our journey. The next thing is you'll have trials, during this journey. You'll have things are going to happen. So if you're fighting a particularly bad guy, he's going to give you, the run for your money. And in wrestling, we talk about different type of spots. We call it heat and we call it hope, heat right. And hope spots right. And comebacks and things like that.
Right.
We're not doing the kayfabe shit. Go ahead and tell you. So you have that call to it. And then your bad guy, and we can do a whole other topic on this, but your bad guy, we're going to call him the threshold guardian. And he's going to represent everything that you're not, So if you're a good, wholesome person, he's going to be the cheater. So a good example of an anti-hero version of this would be like Eddie Guerrero. He's going to cheat, steal, win, but some reason we still liked him, even though he represented things in us that we, didn't necessarily agree with. We can agree cheating and stealing is not necessarily a good thing, but somehow when Eddie Guerrero does it, it was okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right. And again, you got people, and to put it with Star Wars, Darth Vader was the big bad guy, but people thought it was cool the way he could choke you out without even touching you. He could throw you, without even touching you and things like that. People pop for that. So I can see where you're going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So then the next thing is in this hero's journey, in every tale, they found that, they start on the journey. They have some advice. They meet the bad guy. And at some point, they're going to have to reach down deep and get inner strength. And they usually do that through like learning the Force, getting a lightsaber, or they learn that through, recognizing that somebody's cheating and you're telling the story in the ring. But right. we always, the most classic example of inner strength is the Hulk Hogan comeback. You have a double down, both guys are down, and then what? And you've got
right.
Hulk, and the finger shaking, found his inner strength, Yeah, right. Exactly. And he gets it from you, and he gains it, and he gives you mystical powers. If you were to be telling somebody a story about Hulk Hogan getting mystical power and the power to strength up by cupping his ear to his hand and leaning toward a crowd, it gave him energy. So we're talking about, if we tell this story, people would be like, you're full of shit. How can somebody who just get mystical powers? But that's the art of telling the story. That's why we tell this story.
And truth be told, I don't mean to interrupt you, but truth be told, if you ever watch interviews with Hulk Hogan when he does shoot interviews, he will tell you that there are times when he will, when he's lost in the ring, he doesn't know what to do, and he will do his patented this and that, and the crowd will hype him up, and that gets him to finish his match off. That it literally does give him power. It psychs him up. So I just watched an interview yesterday where him and The Rock was talking about their match at WrestleMania 18. And he was talking about, there came a point in time, because they kind of went over the match at the beginning of it, but they didn't call it till they got in the ring, because Hulk didn't like, going through matches before he went in there. He was old school. And he said that when he got in there, the energy was so hyped that when they first locked up, all he had to do was give The Rock a couple of signals, and they knew exactly what to do. The bad guy, good guy thing was already legitly made, and they just had to play out the roles. Like you said, they both knew their roles, and they played it out.
Exactly.
And it told a great story.
Absolutely. What it's about, storytelling. But I'm going to take it a step further. That's also that wrestler's personal journey that we're talking about. As a human being, we all have a hero's journey inside of our heart. I just want to take it and show that we can, use it to teach with, and we can use it for a lot of different other things. But this story exists in every culture. The last thing is their death and rebirth, and coming out of it. Something has to happen. Something drastic has to happen. You remember, we'll just stick with the power of the Hulk, and he hulks out. He got the energy, the mystical energy, if you will, from the crowd. But the key important thing is at the end of the day, that after he's got the ultimate reward, the boon, he's had this death and rebirth in the ring, and has told this story, and he gets the belt, or he gets wins the match, whatever. It's not worth anything if he doesn't leave there learning something. He has to learn that the bad guy cheated him, or he can't trust him anymore, or that he needs the power of the people to elevate him. But it had to tell a true story, there has to be more of a lesson come from it than he simply just won a belt. That's a material object.
And the one thing that people have to realize is every story is different. You can't go and tell the same story every time. The Hulk can't, even though you knew when he did his, hulking up, you knew what was going to happen, but the stories to get to that point were always different. There was always a different way to get him to that point. And that's what, like you said, the storytelling came in, and you kept going and kept going. And there came a point in time where he did the Hulk up thing and it didn't work. And then he had to reinvent another way to do it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it continues.
Yeah. So we can apply this storytelling, but it is, at the end of the day, it's something that happens to each of us in our own lives. We're faced with tragedies. We've talked about, my friends in the past, and those things that have happened. We're faced with individual tragedies throughout our life that we can either face head on and overcome, or we can let it consume us. And following that hero path is so much more than just telling a story in the ring. It's your own personal journey, but we can take that model that's inherently in all of us and apply it to the rest, to performing and presenting a story. There's a quote I sent Ethan Case a couple weeks ago from a French philosopher upon viewing a 1957 wrestling match. He said, I can tell something's going on here, but I think that even in Roman times, a certain bit of pomp and circumstances was required to keep the crowd entertained. It's one thing, like if you think about a gladiator, if you just stab somebody, there's no, like, oh yeah, I won. There had to be some type of outlandish, acting or whatever, over exaggeration, to the crowds and everything. It's a performance. So we're going to try that. Following up on that hero's journey is not the only way. There's an anti-hero's journey, like Eddie Guerrero, like we talked about. There's a whole bunch of different ways to tell stories. A lot of the kids today are into the Rick and Morty, so that's a wonderful way that to tell stories. I don't agree with everything that they do, because sometimes it's kind of nasty, but it is funny. He has a whole thing about storytelling. Dan Harmon is his philosophy on things is, you find a comfort zone, then you're confronted with an unfamiliar situation, you adapt to that situation, and you get what you wanted, but it's at a price. And you return to the familiar, and you have to change. And none of these, again, mean anything unless there's change in it. So I do recommend Rick and Morty. I recommend Adventure Time. And I recommend The Midnight Gospel as 3 things that you can watch that are cartoons that'll make you a better wrestler. But at the end of the day, Joseph Campbell, remember him? Joseph Campbell said, what if you don't want to take that hero's journey? What if you want to do it? And he said, you should always
follow your bliss.
Your bliss. Follow your bliss. And that's what that call to an adventure all about, And so I'll put this up here. I didn't get to use it. I messed it up. I had to write this backwards. The hero's journey.
There you go. There you go. Without a doubt.
I got one more thing here. So in wrestling, we always talk about the guy that struggled and made it. And there's a really good thing, that book I got here to tie everything together, is that Follow Your Bliss, Stay After Your Dreams, go after it no matter what. And that is this little book about Jim Henson called Imagination. And,
that's it.
And basically, if you were to tell the story of Jim Henson, it starts much just like a guy that was, setting up the local ring. He got involved slowly with things, and he saw where he wanted to be, and he went there, and he made his own path. He didn't just, follow the path of everyone else. He made something completely new. That, there were puppets before, but there were Muppets, and how he was doing things, and he took it into a whole different world. So if you want to talk about like one person, your vision or following your bliss, I certainly, recommend like reading the story of get outside of wrestling, find influences that are outside of the wrestling that are familiar to you. And you'll see that, if you follow your bliss, you can accomplish some really amazing things, and you can have your own personal hero's journey. And that was all I had to rant about.
Man, that is no, I learned a lot. I mean, I'm going to pick up them books and read on them. There's some things that you said that I have read in some books, but not those particular books. So I'm definitely going to pick it up. You are definitely, I can see behind you, you've got a ton of books and things like that. So you really dig deep into the psychology and everything of wrestling. Now, let me ask you this. You said your next step was going into being a manager, and you were talking about, reinventing yourself. With all this knowledge that you have you ever thought about actually running a wrestling show?
Fuck no. That's horrible. I've tried to run one show, and it's horrible. Oh my God. No. I'll help you out all that you want. I used to think that maybe I wanted to run a show, but you know what? My hero's journey is in my, that are like real close to me, my girlfriend, the dog, and everybody else is totally unreliable. No, not doing it.
I'll tell them how to get there, but you're not getting there through me.
No, I'll help you out every way, but I'm not taking that heartache on. I tried, and it did not work out, and I'm just going to leave it there. It wasn't for lack of trying.
I was expecting a yes or a no would have been cool, but I wasn't expecting that. That was awesome. I enjoyed that. That surprised me. That was a surprise. All right, man. we're going to get to the segment of the show that I love probably the most on my whole show. I haven't been using it too often, but we're going to do, let me bring it up because I love it. We're going to do name drop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 names from your past. You know all 5 of these people. You could tell a story about them, say they're friends, say they're foes, enemies, whatever. It's all up to you what you want to say about them. And the first name on the list, we spoke about him earlier in the show, Mr. David Reimer.
Man, I can't say enough about David Reimer. He was my friend. You know that scene in Gunsmoke where Doc Holliday's there and he says, "You were my friend," as he's dying. That's what I will say about David Reimer. He was my friend, and that's the best that I can say. And you can't ask for more than that. You just can't. That's what I have to say about
that. Man. Name number 2, Ethan Case.
That's my boy. I believe in everything that Ethan does. I will be there to support him 110%. His training academy is unlike any other training academy that's out there. Palmetto Championship Academy. You walk in that door, when you leave his program, you're ready to work. You're ready to cut promos. You're ready to do this. And you're going to pick up so much more skills. Like I know a lot of the guys train on like background, like video, audio, video, lighting, setting up the ring, the whole 9 yards. You're going to know everything there is to know about wrestling. And you're going to walk out of that place 100%, ready to go. As a performer, I want him to catch a break. Sign him. If you're watching this, somebody get him a sign. I want Devin Ethan to catch. I want him to catch a break. Somebody sign him, anybody. And he struggled, and every time he gets close, he breaks an ankle or something happens, and he's had a couple tragedies that have, or some stumbling blocks, let's say. And I'm over that. I won't see somebody give him a chance. You don't know, like unreal performer. And it's all about those small little things. That's what I have to say about that. Sign Ethan Case.
Sign him. I love it. I love it. He is definitely a one-man stringer party. That is true. All right. Name number 3, Darius Lockhart.
I put Darius on there because Darius is a role model to. I've never worked Darius. All right, I've never been in the ring with Darius, but I've watched Darius, and I've watched him with those David Reimer eyes, and that is sheer talent. But more so than that is the message that he brings everywhere he goes, and I'll tell you, there's always that old story about wrestling with the little lady that sat in the front row, that would have an umbrella and shake at people. You always hear that story. Yeah, that's the modern equivalent of that is Darius Lockhart's mom, who is the kindest, most fearless soul I've ever met, and we always have a good chat. I wanted to make sure and get him on here to give a shout out because the message that he sends to people, to everyone of every kind, is one of love and for fighting for what's right and for injustice. So I wanted to make sure that I got Darius on there for sure because he deserves a shout out.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Name number 4, Mr. James Drake.
Drake. I can't say enough good things about Drake. I've seen him be an amazing wrestler, quit wrestling, go play professional softball for a little while, quit that, come back to wrestling, bowl like 8 perfect games. Did you know he has 8 perfect bowling games? He probably has like 9 or 10 by now.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, he could do no wrong. Yeah, he's just in the ring. And you know what? Sign James Drake or whatever he's going by this week. JD.
Now, I'm going to say something about Mr. James Drake. I love him. He's a great talent, phenomenal talent. I've watched a lot of his matches, but I've been asking him for 2 years to come on #Truth, and he said the best I've gotten is I'll think about it. What's up with that, Drake? I'm just saying, right here in front of Lyle Superlaw Case, What's up with that? Just saying. I'm just saying. I love you, man. I love you, man. I want you on my show. Just saying. Name number 5.
Maybe he's got to watch his mouth and stuff. Maybe he's got irons in the fire. I don't know.
I don't know. The best I ever got was I'll think about it. So apparently he's still thinking. So name number 5 on the list is Crunk.
Crunk. Oh man! Wow. I'll never forget that day either. Crunk and I probably had a series of 5 or 6 matches, and we've worked several times together. If you want to talk about the hero's journey, that man is a hero, and he will always be a hero. And he died being a hero. And I honestly cannot say enough good things about him or his family, his kids. They're huge now. I still follow him online, and then his wife Alicia. I don't know what to say about him. He was formidable in the ring. He was my friend, and he was a fucking hero. And and that's all I got to say about him.
All right, I'm going to add a 6th name to the list just because I want to hear you, because you really haven't said a whole lot about yourself. So I'm going to add a 6th name, Lyle Superlaw Case.
Man, I'm just a guy following the hero's adventure, man. I'm going to go wherever it leads me, and I'm going to take that journey, and I'm going to make it my own, okay? So I'm just a guy. I like to wrestle. I like to shoot things. I like the woods. I like mastering things. So, finding something and becoming an absolute master of it, and then moving on to the next thing. I believe that we're all here on this earth to learn. And that's what I'm here to do, is to learn and to teach. I was an instructor for many years, and being able to teach again and share wisdom and everything is now what I'm about. It's my essence is to share knowledge with people. Sometimes they don't want it mansplained to them, but just let me know and I'll be like, okay, you already know about that. But
right. Nothing you can do if they don't want to listen to it, right?
That's right. I say 2 things: buy the ticket, take the ride. So that's what I have to say about that. Live your life and that's what I do even to this day. I try to. Obviously, 2020 said we'll have none of that shit, but that's how I try to live. And
there you go. All right, my last question before we get out of here. Because I am just curious as all get out after having this conversation and hearing all that about psychology and all the books that you read and things like that. I want to know, Lyle Superlaw Case, in your opinion, in your humble opinion, who is the best wrestler to ever don a pair of boots?
Wow. Why you hit me with that? You know what? Why would you do that? Why would I'm going to say it right now.
Okay.
You're not even going to know who I'm talking about. Grant Apache. And I'm going to say Grant Apache for one reason, because he did like what I do. Grant Apache was he was a Mexican wrestler, CMLL and AAA. And the thing about him was that he taught. So when Ultimo Dragon's dojo was in Mexico, it was him and Skida and a couple of other people who taught. And so, in my opinion, I was the most flamboyant, the most, by no means, but he taught people how to tell a story, and he taught people how to act and how to perform in the ring. And that was his thing. He trained hundreds, if not thousands, of Lucha Libre guys that are out there today. And he sadly passed.
There are a lot of guys who went on to WCW, that went on to WWE, that a lot of people have given him credit for his teachings.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go with someone like with him and possibly Ultimo Dragon. And I don't base that on their in-ring performance. I base that on what they passed along to the others. I put them in the same category as Terry Funk when ECW started up. You know, he was there to teach and to teach others. And so anybody that does that, in my book, is far superior than a flash in the pan wrestler that's only here for a couple of years and they got real famous and they could do some cool shit and talk a little jab on the mic. You know, I'm going to put those guys that hang around and teach and instruct at the top of my list always.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of Lyle Superlaw Case to talk wrestling or to pick your brain about, psychology, if you're a young wrestler out there that wants to talk to you, how would they get a hold of Lyle Superlaw Case? I'm sorry.
Man, at this point, Facebook is the way. So we're just going to go with that one. So it's just Lyle Superlaw Case, Superlaw, all one word, Case at the Facebook gimmick. I don't do the Twitter. This is bad enough. Facebook is horrible. It's destroying people's lives. Blah.
It can be, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm on five different things, and it's a monster. It's a monster to try to keep up with. It's not even fun. At some point, it's not even fun.
I'm gonna throw one more name.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna throw one more name out. And this is literally from the bottom of my heart. Josh Cutshaw. If you're not seeing what Josh is doing, he has this gimmick where he's multiple characters, and it's been done. Mick Foley's done that. So there's been Eugene, had different personas, but you've not seen it done like this. So the work that he's putting in to things, I do want to make sure that I give Josh a shout out because that's my boy. So I want to make sure that people know
Okay, I'm going to ask because I'll get in trouble if I don't. Who is the best manager you've ever seen in professional wrestling?
Bill Alfonso. There's no question.
Good deal. Good deal. Right?
He comes right down
I
the
got
middle,
you.
right?
Well, Lyle, man, we've been on here for an hour and 12 minutes. I appreciate every second of it, man. It has been an honor. I've heard nothing but great things about you. And I'm going to ask you, one of these days, I'm going to call on you, and I want to come up to the cabin, and I want to sit down and have like a 3, 4, 5 hour talk about wrestling. I know me and you could do it, and you could probably teach me so much that I could bring back to my podcast here that my mind would probably explode after being there for 15 minutes. But I would love to legitly get an offer to come up there, and I would love to sit down and pick your brain for a little while.
Man, you come on up anytime. You just hit me up. We'll set it up and make it happen. All right.
Hey, I might even bring Chuck Winchester along for the ride. You never know.
Does he still have that mullet?
Oh yeah. I call it.
What does he call that thing? The chingala, whatever.
It's. I call it a chinchilla, but it's
First one.
Yeah. There you go. I like that. That is good. That is good. I like it. I ain't got no hair. I've got, maybe just enough to touch. That's about all I got on top of my head. So it's all good, man. Well, Lyle, it has been great having you on #Truth. I would love to have you back maybe in a year or two and discuss where you're at, especially if you get into your managing gig. I would love to see who you're managing, and maybe we can get both of you guys on at the same time.
That would be great. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'd love to see you at a show. Come out. This is the part of the show where I would usually say, see us next Saturday at such and such armory, whatever. But we're still not doing that, are we?
It kind of stinks that we can't do that right now. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm all queued up and ready to go to put posters up and everything else, but it's just not happening right now. Hopefully we keep saying, we're praying. Hopefully soon. Okay.
To quote the Lord of the Rings, I hate it. I hates it all.
I hate it. I hate it all. Exactly, man. All right, Mr. Case, I am going to get out of here. Guys, this guy is full of a lot of great information, a lot of great backstory. He knows a lot about North Carolina history in wrestling also. There he is, the one, the only Lyle Superlaw Case, and that is the hashtag truth. Y'all have a good night.